What's up? It's Marty Intrum, and you are in the Nerd Nest. Well, I said I'd be making more videos this month. I mean, it's the only way I can get more subscribers, right? I need some eyeballs to watch my weirdness. Anyway, it's time for a new edition of a series I haven't done in a while. It's the Top 10. This edition of the Top 10 is going to be talking about something I like, besides game shows, video games. In particular, I'm going to be talking about Nintendo's new hybrid console, the Switch 2, which came out back in June. I haven't gotten one yet, but I plan to get one, although there's one or two things I hope they do before I buy one, and that's to most importantly, make it so you actually own the damn system after you buy it. Seriously, Nintendo, don't be like Apple or EA. Okay, I digress. The Switch 2 online service has expanded the number of classic games on their online service, which is now called Nintendo Classics. They will be adding new games. In fact, the big announcement was that they will be adding games from Nintendo's early to mid 2000s console, the Gamecube. Who can forget that cute little ditty? Anyway, so far, 4 games have been added to the GameCube line. F-Zero GX, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, finally, Soul Calibur 2, and Super Mario Strikers. New games are coming. I mean, more games are coming, including Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon Colosseum, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and Chibi Robo have been listed so far. Anyway, as you might have guessed by now, the topic for this edition of the Top 10 is the Top 10 GameCube games I want on Nintendo Switch 2. As I did in my previous Top 10 videos about video games, I'll also mention how likely they are to end up on the GameCube on the Switch 2. So let's get crack-a-lackin'.
Number 10, Skies of Arcadia Legends. In this JRPG, you play as Weiss and Ica, air pirates who roam the skies of Arcadia, where 6 civilizations live on floating continents orbited by 6 moons of different colors. Weiss and Ica are members of the Blue Rogues who, like Robin Hood, rob from the rich and give to the poor while resisting the militant and tyrannical Valuan Empire. Their empress, Theodora, seeks the moon crystals to reawaken the Gygus, colossal living weapons of mass destruction which nearly destroyed humanity many millennia ago, and used them to take over the world. The Silver Civilization, which ended that war, and learning of this plan, send their princess Fina to find the moon crystals first. She is captured by the Empire's armada, but is saved by Weiss and Ica, whom, with mutual enemies, agree to help her mission. Gameplay has the player engage enemies in turn-based battles to earn experience points, and there's emphasis on exploration. The overworld is divided into 6 regions, traversed by flying airships in 3D space. The player might also recruit characters they encounter in exploration, allowing them to be placed on the ship staff. When docked on landmasses, players explore on foot. Gameplay then alternates between exploring cities, which allows players to buy equipment and interact with non-playable characters, and then progress through dungeons. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 40 to 50%. Skies of Arcadia was produced by Sega back in 2000 for their last console, the Dreamcast, and it received critical acclaim upon release and is frequently regarded as one of the best games for the Dreamcast, but it bombed commercially because it was on the Dreamcast. Anyway, the game was updated and released on the GameCube in 2002 and is called Skies of Arcadia Legends. The development team previously worked on other Sega franchises including Sonic the Hedgehog, Panzer Dragoon, Phantasy Star, and the Sakura Wars games. Sega has released many other franchises on Nintendo consoles since giving up on their own consoles more than 20 years ago, so hopefully this lost gem will eventually see the light again. Number 9. Beautiful Joe 1 and 2. Henshin a Go-Go, baby! Yes, this is actually 2 games instead of 1, but I decided to put both of them here just because they're both good games. In this beat-em-up platformer, you play as Joe, an avid moviegoer whose girlfriend, Sylvia, is kidnapped during a film starring Joe's favorite superhero, Captain Blue. Joe is shortly thereafter thrust into Movie Land, where Sylvia is taken by a group of villains. After accepting a special V-Watch from Captain Blue, Joe transforms into the tokusatsu-style persona Beautiful Joe and sets out to rescue Sylvia. The game contains platforming elements such as the ability to jump and double jump, and it consists of fighting multiple enemies on screen at once, with the enemies appearing from all directions, including the foreground and background. Joe has the ability to punch, kick, and dodge, and has what's called VFX power, which is used in both battling enemies and solving various puzzles. The VFX powers are designed to emulate camera tricks seen in films that can make Joe slow down time, speed him up, or even do a close-up, which power up Joe's normal attacks, granting him a new set of attacks, and paralyzes all lesser foes in proximity to him. The second game is more of the same, but now Sylvia joins the battle, and she has her own VFX power, which allows her to record and repeat an event 3 times in succession, doing thrice the damage to enemies, and you can now switch between the two of them. Chances of it coming to Switch 2, 55 to 65%. Beautiful Joe was released in 2003 and its sequel came out a year later. The games were both very successful financially and critically acclaimed for their unique visual styles and gameplay, and it even inspired an anime that was actually dubbed in English. The game was developed by Capcom's now defunct Clover Studio and was directed by Hideki Kamiya and produced by Atsushi Inaba, whom alongside Shinji Mikami would later form Platinum Games, releasing fan favorites such as Okami, Mad World, the Bayonetta series, and The Wonderful 101, which is considered Beautiful Joe's spiritual successor. The series, however, is owned by Capcom, so it will be up to them to decide whether Joe would be allowed to don his superpowers again. We can only hope that a new generation will eventually get to try these beautiful games. Number 8, Star Fox Assault. The second of the 2 Star Fox games on the GameCube, Assault features Fox McCloud leading Team Star Fox, Slippy, Falco, and Crystal, replacing the now retired Peppy, as they attempt to save the Lilat system from the enemy insectoid beings called Aparoids. They are capable of controlling machines and life forms through an infection and operate as a hive mind under the control of the Aparoid Queen. The Star Fox team travels to many different locations in the Lilat system, such as their native planet of Corneria, rival team Star Wolf's hideout, the prehistoric planet of Soria, and the Aparoid homeworld. The game returns to the classic rail shooter style of the SNES and N64 Star Fox titles, and has Team Star Fox doing battle in their R-Wings, occasionally doing battle with Star Wolf, or they can roam a planet's surface in the Landmaster tank. In some levels, Fox and his crew can travel on the planet on foot, and the game becomes a third-person run-and-gun shooter, like Contra or Metal Slug. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 50 to 60%. Star Fox Assault was released in 2005 and received mixed reviews from critics. The game was praised for its atmosphere, soundtrack, and the ability to use both the R-Wing and Landmaster at will during ground missions, but was criticized for its on-foot controls, low replay value of the multiplayer mode, and its short length. Despite this, the game sold well enough to end up on Nintendo's Player's Choice list, along with the OG Star Fox 64, and Star Fox Adventures. The game was developed by Namco, but since Nintendo owns the Star Fox franchise, they should be able to get onto the Switch 2 no problem. Number 7, Sonic Adventure DX and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Considered Sonic the Hedgehog's true jump to 3D, Sonic Adventure has Sega's Blue Blur along with Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big the Cat, and Gamma the Robot in their individual quests to collect the Chaos Emeralds to stop Dr. Robotnik, aka Eggman, from unleashing chaos and ancient evil. Each character has their own ability. Many elements from older Sonic games are retained, such as power-ups and the ring-based health system. There's also mini-games such as racing and interacting with a Chow. The second game has 2 story modes, one where Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles fight to save the world, and one where Robotnik, Shadow, and Rouge the Bat try to conquer it. There are 3 different game modes in this one. Fast-paced platforming for Sonic and Shadow, third-person shooting for Tails and Robotnik, and action-adventure exploration for Knuckles and Rouge. The second game also has a multiplayer mode. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 40 to 50%. Sonic Adventure was released on the Dreamcast in 1998 in Japan and 1999 in the US, and would see a port on the GameCube called Sonic Adventure DX in 2003, which came with modern graphics, more challenges, and additional content, such as the ability to unlock Metal Sonic. The second game was released in 2001 on the Dreamcast, one of the last titles on a Sega console, and then on the GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. While the Dreamcast games were positively praised, the GameCube remake's receptions were kind of mixed, with DX being criticized for not addressing the problems of the original version, and the graphics were only marginally different, and expressing dissatisfaction with its collision detection. 2 Battle was criticized for not being much different from the original Dreamcast port. Nonetheless, both games sold well and were credited for helping establish Sega as a strong third-party supporter. Ultimately, it would be up to Sega whether or not to allow these games on the Switch 2 Online's GameCube library or re-release them on the eShop even. Either way, I'm sure fans both new and old would love to give Sonic's first 3D adventures a spin. Number 6, Star Fox Adventures. The first of the Star Fox games on the GameCube, Star Fox Adventures was a unique action-adventure game that was a departure from the railgun shooter style from the first 2 Star Foxes. In this game, set 8 years after Star Fox 64, Fox, along with Peppy, Slippy, and Rob 64, who fills in for Falco here, the game also introduces Crystal, a blue female fox who is the sole survivor of her doomed homeworld, and joins Team Star Fox to learn the truth behind her planet's destruction. The game takes place on Dinosaur Planet, also called Soria, as well as detached pieces that orbit it. Soria is inhabited by dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures and is ruled by 2 rival tribes. Their joint enemy is the Sharp Claw, led by the tyrannical General Scales, who seeks to conquer the planet. Crystal learns that General Scales attacked the palace and is persuaded by a wounded Earthwalker, one of the 2 tribes, to collect the Krazoa spirits and return them to the palace, tilting the war in the dinosaurs' favor. But after releasing the first one, Crystal is trapped in a floating crystal. Crystal in a crystal. Anyway, when the Star Fox team arrives, Fox obtains and wields Crystal's magic staff that she had dropped. He learns that General Scales stole 4 spellstones from the planet's Force Point temples. To prevent the planet from breaking up any further and to restore it to its original state, Fox must traverse the planet and return the stones to the temples with the help of the Queen's son, Prince Tricky. He must also retrieve the other 5 Krazoa spirits to repair the planet and save Crystal. The game's main mode is similar to the Legend of Zelda series in that the player explores 13 different locations on foot. The game has a currency called Scarabs that can be used to purchase healing items, new equipment, and maps. The character can climb, swim, and jump between platforms, while some areas require the player to solve a puzzle and there's a day and night cycle. The aforementioned magic staff functions as both a weapon and a tool for exploration and puzzle solving. There's also an R-Wing mode, looks like the earlier Star Fox games, which allow the player to travel to different locations, which are unlocked in adventure mode. Upon choosing a destination, the player engages in an on-rail segment in which players dodge obstacles while shooting down enemies. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2? 50 to 60%. Star Fox Adventures actually began as 2 games in development in conjunction with each other. A proposed action-adventure sequel to Star Fox 64 that began development within Nintendo, and Dinosaur Planet, an original property created by Rare that was in development since 1997. Shigeru Miyamoto convinced Rare to merge the 2 projects and shift development forward to the GameCube. It would eventually be released in 2002 and was also Rare's only game on the GameCube, because Rare was bought by Microsoft that year. The game was a commercial success and received mostly positive reviews, notably for its detailed graphics, new designs of characters including Fox, and its dynamic environments. However, the voice acting and the departure from the traditional Star Fox style gameplay received some criticism, with one writer speculating that Nintendo only added the Star Fox license to prevent Dinosaur Planet from appearing on the Xbox. Still, Star Fox Adventures was an interesting take on the series and is still worth a look, and hopefully Nintendo will be able to add to the GameCube library on the Switch 2 Online. Of course, I'm still waiting for an HD Open Universe Star Fox game, but that's for another day. Number 5, Wario World. The first 3D platformer featuring Mario's greedy anti-hero doppelganger, Wario World has our favorite garlic-loving jerk enjoying his newly built castle, filled with treasures that he's collected from earlier adventures. An evil gem called the Black Jewel, hidden amongst Wario's treasure collection, suddenly awakens and takes over the castle. The Black Jewel turns Wario's treasure into monsters and transforms his castle into a hub with 4 worlds. Wario must proceed through the world controlled by the Black Jewel, recovering his treasure along the way and rescuing Spritelings, the creatures that sealed the Black Jewel away in the past, to eventually battle the Black Jewel itself and take back his castle. The game is a 3D platformer with an emphasis on exaggerated combat. The levels are mostly linear, containing enemies and obstacles alongside collectibles such as Spritelings and coins, which can be collected to progress further. Each level also holds trapped doors, which, when found, lead to either a platforming or puzzle challenge. Wario can attack enemies in a variety of ways. Alongside the basic punches, Wario can grab enemies and either spin them around, throw them, or pile drive them into the ground. Wario can also grab certain items from the environment, allowing to deal more damage, and has a wider range in his attacks. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 60 to 70%. Wario World was developed by Treasure, which made the earlier Mischief Makers and Sin and Punishment for N64, and before that, Gunstar Heroes for the Sega Genesis. Released in 2003, Wario World was a commercial success and received mostly positive reviews, praising the gameplay and control, with its biggest criticism being its short length. Still, it's a fun game and it's a good way to kill time for the weekend. Hopefully Nintendo will allow Wario some time off from his micro games so he can relive his 3D treasure grabbing adventure. Number 4, Metroid Prime 2, Echoes. The sequel to the critically lauded Metroid Prime, the second game has Samus Aran sent to rescue Galactic Federation Marines from a ship near Aether, a planet inhabited by an alien race known as the Luminoth. She discovers that the troops were slaughtered by the Ing, a hostile alien race that came from an alternate dimension of Aether. Samus must travel to the 4 temples to ensure the destruction of the Ing while battling them, wild creatures, space pirates, and her mysterious doppelganger, Dark Samus. Like the first Metroid Prime, the game controls Samus from the first person's perspective. Gameplay involves solving puzzles to uncover secrets, platform jumping, and shooting enemies. Equipment players collect include the Screw Attack, which allows Samus to somersault in midair and off of certain surfaces, and new beam weapons that have limited ammunition. Echoes features the parallel dimensions of light ether and dark ether. Changes in either dimension often reflect changes in the other. While the maps in both dimensions have the same general layout, rooms often vary in their designs, creatures, and objects. Dark ether's atmosphere actually damages Samus's power suit, requiring the player to move between safe zones that allow Samus's health to slowly regenerate. Safe zones can either be permanent or they need to be activated by firing certain beam weapons at force field generators. Power suit upgrades can reduce or nullify damage caused by the atmosphere. The game also has a multiplayer mode, a first for the series. Chances of it coming to Switch 2, 70 to 80%. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes was released in November of 2004 and developed by Retro Studios, the Austin, Texas-based studio that revived the Metroid series after an 8-year hiatus, with the first Prime game on GameCube in 2002. Much like the first game, the sequel was highly praised by critics, with the single-player campaign hailed as a lengthy and rewarding adventure, as were the graphics, with some calling them the best on the GameCube. The theme's dynamics between dark and light was also lauded. There was, however, criticism towards its difficulty, with a writer at Game Informer declaring that not only are the boss fights unforgiving, the environment is sometimes difficult to follow. The multiplayer was also said to be unsatisfying. Regardless, the game was a hit, and the trilogy would wrap up on the Wii 3 years later with Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. And of course, we're finally going to get a 4th game in the series, eventually. So maybe Nintendo can bring this game out of the darkness and into the light so we can get our Metroid fill until Prime 4 comes out. If it comes out. Number 3, Mario Kart Double Dash. The GameCube's entry into the Mario Kart series, Double Dash featured a unique twist on the Mario Kart formula, as each kart now held 2 racers. The rider in front drives the kart, while the rider in back controls use of the items, giving a whole new meaning to the phrase backseat driver. Any combination of characters is possible. For example, Mario can be paired with Luigi, Peach, or even Bowser. Awkward. Anyway, in single-player mode, the player controls both riders, while in co-op play, each player controls one of the riders. While racing, the player can accelerate, steer, reverse, brake, drift, switch character positions, or use weapons and power-ups with the controller's analog stick and buttons. As before, players can acquire weapons and power-ups by running into the item boxes scattered across the track. There are also single and double item boxes, the latter of which held 2 items, and they were later seen again in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The standard items such as shells, lightning bolts, mushrooms, and bananas all appear. Plus, each pair of characters has a unique item that the others do not, and are picked up in the same way as standard items. For example, Mario and Luigi can launch fireballs against other racers, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong can throw giant bananas, Wario and Waluigi can throw bombs, and Bowser Jr. can throw a giant shell. The game was also the first to feature specialized karts instead of the classic pipe frame. The game added 16 new tracks and 6 new battle arenas. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 80 to 90%. Mario Kart Double Dash was released in 2003 to critical acclaim and strong sales. It was the second best-selling title on the GameCube with 6.8 million copies sold worldwide. The feature of having 2 riders per kart was praised, with Game Informer stating that giving the player control of 2 different characters is pretty cool in single player, but add a friend on the back of your kart in multiplayer, and it opens up the game like never before. There was mixed reaction to the game's audio, with one critic from IGN dismissing the score as simplistic and unimpressive. Another reviewer also stated that he was a little disappointed with the limited scope of the game, considering the 6-year gap following Mario Kart 64. Still, Double Dash is considered one of the better Mario Kart games, and it would be great if Nintendo added it to the GameCube lineup. Of course, they're probably still hoping a lot of people are too busy still playing Mario Kart World to notice it not being there. Number 2, Super Smash Bros. Melee. The second game in Nintendo's crossover fighting series, and still one of the best, Super Smash Bros. Melee takes what worked in the first Smash on N64 and expands upon it in more ways than one. Just like in the first game, players need to pummel their opponents until they're knocked off the stage. Each character's health is measured by a meter that represents damage as a percentage. The higher the percentage value, the farther the player gets knocked back, and the easier they are to knock off the stage, which results in defeat. Items from Nintendo's many game universes drop onto the battlefield that can restore health, be used as weapons, and can assist the player who grabs them, such as the star from Mario, granting temporary invincibility. The single-player mode returns where the final boss is Master Hand, or even the tougher Crazy Hand. New modes introduced for the first time include Home Run Contest and Adventure Mode, which takes the player to several predefined universes of Nintendo's characters. The game also introduced trophies. Melee had 25 characters compared to 12 in the first game, including Marth and Roy from Fire Emblem, which was not released outside Japan at the time. However, their appearance in Melee would eventually lead to Nintendo releasing Fire Emblem overseas. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 80 to 90%. Super Smash Bros. Melee was released in 2001, shortly after the GameCube's launch, and just 2 years after the original's release on N64. It received critical acclaim from reviewers, most of whom credited Melee's expansion of gameplay features from the first game. Despite mixed response to the single-player modes, many reviewers expressed the game's multiplayer mode as a strong component and the main selling point. The game was the best-selling title on the GameCube, selling almost 7.5 million copies worldwide, and it was estimated at one point in time, 70% of all GameCube owners owned a copy of Melee. Melee has actually been featured in many competitive gaming tournaments, boasting a dedicated grassroots fan community which has kept its competitive scene alive more than 2 decades after the game's release, with many considering it the best title in the Super Smash Bros. Series. So much so that players have even bought specialized GameCube controllers for the Switch when Ultimate came out in 2018. With that kind of popularity, we can only hope Nintendo will bring Melee to the Switch 2 online service to tide us over until the next Smash game comes out. If it comes out. And number 1, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. You all knew this had to be my top pick, right? The second GameCube title in Nintendo's beloved franchise, Twilight Princess is also one of the darkest, being the first and only Zelda game to get a T rating from the ESRB. In this game, Link is a farmhand, and one day Bulbins take away the village's children. Link pursues and encounters a wall of Twilight. A monster then pulls him beyond the wall into the Twilight-shrouded forest, where he is imprisoned and transformed into a wolf. Link is soon freed by an imp named Midna, who offers to help him if he obeys her unconditionally. She then guides him to Princess Zelda, who explains that Zant, the usurper king of the Twilight, invaded Hyrule Castle and forced her to surrender. Hyrule became enveloped in Twilight, turning all of its inhabitants besides Link and Zelda into invisible spirits. To save Hyrule, Link, aided by Midna, must first revive the light spirits by entering the Twilight-covered regions and recovering their lights from the Twilight beings that have stolen it. Once revitalized, the spirits return Link to his Hylian form and informs him and Midna of the hidden location of a fused shadow, one of the fragments of a powerful relic called the Mirror of Twilight that will be the only way to defeat Zant. The game features the classic Zelda focus on combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. It uses the basic control scheme introduced in Ocarina of Time, including context-sensitive action buttons and target lock. Link travels to dungeons and fights a boss at the end in order to obtain an item or otherwise advance the story. Dungeons are connected by the large overworld, across which Link can travel on foot, on his horse Epona, or by teleporting with Midna's assistance. Link can also enter the Twilight Realm and transform into a wolf. Eventually, he'll be able to transform at will. Here, Link instead attacks by biting and defends primarily by dodging attacks. He also moves faster than he does on foot as a human, digging holes to create new passages and can uncover buried items and has improved senses, including the ability to follow scent trails. He can also carry Midna on his back, who uses an energy field to attack enemies, helps him jump long distances, and eventually allows him to warp to any several preset locations throughout the world. Chances of it coming to the Switch 2, 85 to 95%. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is considered by many to be one of the best games in the series. Released as the GameCube swan song in 2006, as well as a launch title for the Wii, Twilight Princess would be released to near universal acclaim, becoming the highest rated game on Metacritic for the year 2006, and it got near perfect scores from many gaming publications. Game Informer called it so creative that it rivals the best Hollywood has to offer, and the game won multiple Game of the Year awards. By 2015, the game sold more than 8.5 million copies, making it the best-selling Legend of Zelda game until Breath of the Wild came out in 2017 for the Wii U and the Switch. The game also got an HD remake for the Wii U, and it was also adapted into a manga. With Wind Waker being available to play on the Switch 2 online service, it should only be a matter of time before Twilight Princess joins the lineup. Of course, I'm still waiting for the HD ports of both games on the Switch, and of course, Nintendo will probably charge me $100 for it. But like Fry always says,
shut up and take my money!
And that is my top 10 GameCube games I want to see on Switch 2. If you can think of any other GameCube games you'd like to see, put them down in the comments below. And don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Space Day, you know all that by now. Look for more weirdness soon. Until then, I'm Marty Itcham, and I'm logging out of the Nerd Nest.